Have you ever stopped to think that some of your daily habits, even the simplest, are sabotaging your happiness, productivity, and mental well-being? Many times, without realizing it, small attitudes that we constantly repeat end up undermining our mental, emotional, and even physical strength. These are behaviors that seem harmless at first, but over time, they become true obstacles to reach our full potential. Today, we will explore 7 seemingly harmless habits that are weakening you every day. But don't worry, this video is not just about pointing out problems. It also offers practical solutions based on Stoic philosophy, one of the oldest and most effective approaches to dealing with the challenges of modern life. Stoicism teaches you to live wisely, resilience, and focus on what really matters, and better yet, it is incredibly applicable to our chaotic daily life. Stoic philosophy emerged in ancient Greece, with thinkers such as Zeno de Cicero, Epictetus, and Marco Aurelio, but their lessons remain relevant today. She reminds us that we cannot control everything around us, but we have full power over our reactions and choices. With this mindset, we can transform harmful habits into constructive behaviors that strengthen our mind and spirit. If you are ready to identify these harmful habits and find out how to overcome them, keep watching. Let us have exploited how Stoicism can be your ally in building a more resilient and balanced life. Habit 1. Procrastination. Procrastination is one of the most common and harmful habits that affect our daily productivity. We often postpone important tasks for fear, lack of motivation, or simply because they seem too challenging at the moment. However, this constant practice not only reduces our efficiency, but also generates anxiety and stress, because we know we need to do something, but we continue to avoid. Imagine this situation. You have a deadline to deliver an important project at work or college. Instead of starting immediately, you find an apology. I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm not in the mood today. Or even, I need to check my messages first. Before you realize, time has passed, and now you are running against the clock, which increases your pressure and decreases the quality of the end result. But how can we overcome this saboteur habit? The answer is in a Stoic technique called previous night visualization. The principle is simple. Imagine the worst possible scenario related to that task you are procrastinating. Ask yourself, if I don't do that, what will be the consequences? After that, reflect on the following. Are these consequences so bad? Can I deal with them? By facing the problem directly, you remove irrational fear and gain mental clarity to act. Also, another powerful approach is to start with small actions. No need to solve everything at once. Just take the first step. According to Stoics, the initial movement is crucial. Once you start, initial inertia tends to disappear and the task becomes less intimidating. So here is your call to action. Identify something you are procrastinating right now. It can be anything. Send an important email, start that online course, or organize your finances. Book a few minutes today to take the first step. Remember, each little victory counts, and by overcoming procrastination, you strengthen your mental resilience and improve your ability to face future challenges. Habit 2. Excessive self-criticism. If procrastination weakens our productivity, excessive self-criticism directly attacks our self-confidence and personal growth capacity. Many people have a habit of being extremely hard on themselves after making mistakes or facing failures. This constant practice not only limits our potential, but it also creates a vicious cycle of negativity that can be difficult to break. Imagine this scene. You have just made a mistake in an important presentation at work or get negative feedback on a project. Instead of analyzing objectively what happened, your mind begins to echo thoughts like, I'm incapable, I will never get, or this proves that I'm not good enough. This kind of corrosive internal dialogue not only unmotivated, but also prevents us from learning from our mistakes. This is where Stoicism comes in, offering a powerful approach to transforming these moments of failure into learning opportunities. The first thing to do is remember that errors are inevitable and part of the growth process. No one is born perfect, and all the great conquerors in history have gone through failures before achieving success. A valuable Stoic technique for dealing with self-criticism is to ask yourself, what can I learn from it? Instead of focusing on the failure itself, focus on what it can teach. For example, if you made a mistake in a project, reflect on what the causes were and how you can improve next time. This changes your perspective from something negative to a valuable lesson. Also, practice self-pity. Remember that you are human and everyone makes mistakes. Treat the same kindness as it would offer a friend in a similar situation. Stoics teach us that we have control over our reactions and choices, so instead of punishing us, we can use these moments as a fuel to evolve. Your call to action here is simple. Think of a recent time when you were overly critical of yourself. Reevaluate this episode with a new mindset. Ask yourself what you have learned and how you can apply this lesson in the future. By cultivating this practice regularly, you will begin to replace self-criticism with self-development, strengthening your emotional resilience and self-esteem. Habit 3. Social comparison. Social comparison is another habit that can be extremely harmful to our mental health and emotional well-being. We live in a connected world where social networks constantly expose us to the seemingly perfect achievements of others. This constant bombardment of images and success stories can create a sense of inadequacy and dissatisfaction with yourself. Imagine this situation. You are rolling your feed on Instagram or Facebook and see photos of friends traveling the world, buying new cars, or celebrating great professional achievements. Instantly, the feeling arises that your life is not up to. This comparison not only diminishes your self-esteem, but it also removes you from the focus on what really matters, your own journey and progress. Stoics have a valuable lesson to teach us here. Focus on what you have, not what is missing. Daily gratitude is a powerful practice that can transform this negative mindset of comparison into a more positive and constructive attitude. When we practice gratitude, we recognize the good things in our lives and learn to value them instead of being obsessed with what others have. A simple technique you can adopt is to maintain a diary of gratitude. Every day, before bed, write 3 things you are grateful. These can be small victories, such as completing an important task at work, spending quality time with loved ones, or even something as basic as having health. The goal is to train your mind to see the positive side of life and divert your attention from unnecessary comparisons. Also, remember that social networks often show only an idealized version of reality. You are only seeing people's highlight reels, not your daily struggles or moments of failure. This means that comparing your real life with the perfect images on social networks is unfair and counterproductive. Your call to action for this chapter is to start practicing gratitude today. Dedicate a few minutes at the end of the day to reflect on the good things that happened and write it down. Over time, you will realize that your perspective will gradually change and social comparison will no longer have so much impact on you. Habit 4. Passive content consumption. If social comparison on social networks can already be harmful, passive consumption of content leads this dynamic to an even more problematic level. Many people spend hours rolling feeds, watching purposeless videos, or browsing randomly over the internet just for lack of a clear direction. This habit not only wasted valuable time, but also leaves us from the activities that really add value to our lives. Imagine this scene. You come home after a long day at work and decide to rest, rolling on your cell phone. One thing leads to another, and before you realize, 2 or 3 hours have been consuming content without any specific objectives. When it looks back, you realize that you could have used this time to learn something new, practice a hobby, or even rest more intentionally. Stoicism teaches us that time is our most precious resource, and we must use it wisely. To combat passive content consumption, we need to set clear limits and reserve space for activities that contribute to our personal growth and well-being. A practical strategy is to define specific times for the use of technology. Book blocks of time to check your social networks or watch videos, and keep these periods short and controlled. Also, explore productive alternatives to fill your free time. For example, you can read an inspiring book, practice meditation, write reflections in a diary, or learn a new skill. Another powerful technique is to disable unnecessary notifications on your devices. Constant notifications are designed to capture your attention and keep you stuck to the passive consumption cycle. When you turn them off, you reduce the temptation to pick up your phone every time you hear a warning. Finally, create a daily routine that prioritizes significant activities. Dedicate at least 30 minutes of your day to something that really matters to you, to study, exercise, or simply reflect on your personal journey. This will help build a more conscious and intentional mindset about time use. Your call to action for this chapter is to identify a time of day when you usually consume content passively and replace it with a productive activity. Start small, but be consistent. Over time, you will see how this positively impacts your productivity and well-being. Habit 5. Lack of planning. Lack of planning is a habit that can cause a constant sense of dispersion and disorganization, impairing your productivity and mental clarity. Many people start the day without knowing exactly what they need or want to do, which leads to impulsive decisions and poorly defined priorities. This not only wasting energy, but it also creates a sense of lack of control over your life. Imagine waking up without a clear plan for the day. You start by responding to messages randomly, surfing the internet, or performing trivial tasks, while really important activities are aside. At the end of the day, you feel frustrated because you could not advance your main goals. This repetitive cycle can be exhausting and demotivating. Stoicism offers a practical solution to combat this lack of direction. The method of 3 priorities. The idea is simple but powerful. Every night before bed, choose the 3 most important things you need or want to accomplish the next day. These priorities must be specific, realistic, and aligned with their long-term values and goals. By establishing these 3 priorities, you ensure that your time and energy are directed to what really matters. In addition, this daily habit helps develop mental discipline and focus as it trains your mind to differentiate between urgent tasks and those you can expect. Another useful technique is to book a few minutes every morning to review your priorities and adjust them as needed. This allows you to adapt to day changes without losing the overall course. Stoics remind us that we have control over how we organize our time and resources. Therefore, we must use them wisely. Also, avoid overloading your task list. Remember that less is more. By focusing on a few clear goals, you increase your chances of success and reduce stress associated with excessive multitasking. Its call to action for this chapter is to start practicing the method of 3 priorities today. Before bed, list the 3 most important things you want to do tomorrow. By implementing this practice regularly, you will notice significant improvements in your productivity and a sense of control over your life. Habit 6. Fear of failing. Fear of failing is one of the most paralyzing mental habits we can develop. Many people avoid taking risks or trying something new for fear of being judged, rejected, or simply for not wanting to face the possibility of failure. This behavior can severely limit our potential and prevent us from growing both professional and personally. Imagine this situation. You have an innovative idea for work or want to start a new project, but you decide not to act because you fear that the people around you can criticize it or that the end result is not perfect. This constant hesitation creates an invisible barrier that keeps you from moving forward, keeping you stuck to the comfort zone. Stoics have a powerful approach to dealing with this kind of fear, the technique of Stoic visualization. The idea is simple but deeply transformative. Imagine the worst possible scenario related to the challenge you are considering facing. Ask yourself, if I fail, what will be the consequences? Can I deal with them? By facing these issues directly, you remove irrational fear and gain mental clarity to make more assertive decisions. Also, remember that failure does not define who you are. It is just a part of the learning process. Each great conqueror in history faced faults before achieving success. What sets them apart is the ability to keep trying, regardless of adversity. Another useful practice is to redefine your perspective on failure. Instead of seeing it as negative, start seeing it as a growth opportunity. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? This mindset change helps transform seemingly bad moments into important steps toward progress. Finally, take small steps toward your goals. No need to solve everything at once. Just give the first movement. As you begin to act, initial inertia tends to disappear and confidence gradually increases. Your call to action for this chapter is to identify a challenge you have avoided for fear of failing and committing to take the first step today. Whether it is small or large, the important thing is to start. Over time, you will realize that the fear of failing loses your strength when you allow yourself to experiment and learn. Habit 7. Emotional reactivity. Emotional reactivity is a habit that can cause stress, conflicts, and impulsive decision-making in our daily lives. Often, when we face challenging adversities or situations, we respond immediately with anger, frustration, or anxiety, without giving us time to reflect on the best way to act. This automatic response not only harms our relationships, but also compromises our ability to deal with problems rationally and effectively. Imagine this scene. Someone says something you interpret as a critique or insult. Your first reaction is to respond in the same coin, perhaps with a harsh word or a defensive attitude. In the heat of the moment, you act without thinking about the consequences, which can lead to misunderstandings, fights, or even irreparable damage to the relationship. Stoics have a powerful solution to control this reactivity: the emotional pause. The idea is simple, but deeply transformative. Before reacting to any situation, breathe deeply and observe your thoughts and emotions. By creating this space between stimulus and response, you gain control over your reaction, avoiding impulsive decisions that may be harmful. A practical technique to implement this break is to count up to 5 before responding to any challenging provocation or situation. During those few seconds, ask yourself, what really matters here? How can I respond more constructively? This small break can make all the difference, allowing you to respond calmly and clearly instead of giving in to anger or frustration. Also, practice daily reflection on your emotional interactions. At the end of the day, set aside a few minutes to evaluate how you reacted to different situations. Ask yourself, there were times when I could have answered differently. What can I learn from it? This practice helps to develop self-awareness and strengthen your ability to manage emotions. Remember that you always have a choice on how to respond to adversity. Stoics teach us that it is not external events that disturb us, but our perceptions about them. By changing your perspective, you get greater control over your emotions and make more balanced decisions. Your call to action for this chapter is to practice the emotional break the next time you feel angry or frustrated. Breathe deeply, observe your thoughts, and carefully choose your answer. Over time, this practice will become natural, helping you cultivate greater serenity and wisdom in all areas of life. Now that we explore the 7 habits that may be weakening our daily lives, it is important to see how these Stoic lessons apply in practice. To better illustrate how to overcome these harmful behaviors, we will examine 2 inspiring stories, one of antiquity and one in the modern world. Marco Aurelio, one of the most renowned and Roman empiric philosophers in the 2nd century AD, faced constant political crises during his reign. Wars, epidemics, and betrayals threatened their position of leadership and imperial stability. However, instead of succumbing to chaos or emotional reactivity, he resorted to the Stoic principles to maintain his calm and mental clarity. In his work, Meditations, Marco Aurelio wrote about the importance of accepting adversities as a natural part of life. He often reflected on the fact that we cannot control everything around us, but we have complete power over our reactions. Instead of letting himself down on external circumstances, he used each challenge as an opportunity to practice virtues such as courage, patience, and wisdom. Your approach serves as a perfect example of how we can apply Stoicism in difficult situations. Whether dealing with pressures at work, family conflicts, or financial uncertainties, remembering that we have control over our choices can give us strength to face any obstacle. In the contemporary world, we find similar stories of people who applied the Stoic principles to transform their lives. Consider John's case, a young entrepreneur who was about to give up his dream of opening a startup after a series of consecutive failures. Each attempt resulted in financial losses and negative criticism, which led John to question his ability to success. It was then that he discovered Stoicism and began to implement his practices in his routine. First, he adopted the technique of daily gratitude, focusing on the good things he still had, even in the midst of the difficulties. He then used the Stoic view to face the worst possible scenario related to his business. This helped him realize that even if he failed again, he would be able to learn and move on. John also began to practice the 3 priorities method, better organizing his time and energy. With this new mindset, he rebuilt his company, learning from his previous mistakes and making more assertive decisions. Today, his startup is a great success, and he attributes his transformation to the transforming power of Stoicism. These stories show that, regardless of the time or context, Stoic principles remain relevant and effective. They teach us that true strength does not come from avoiding challenges, but of facing them with resilience and wisdom. Now that we have exploited the 7 harmful habits and how Stoicism can help overcome them, it's time to put these lessons into practice. Here are some practical suggestions to integrate the Stoic principles in your daily life. Create a Stoic diary. Reserve a few minutes every day to reflect on your experiences, emotions, and decisions. Write what you have learned and how you could have reacted differently in challenging situations. This practice helps to develop self-awareness and strengthens your mental resilience. Practice mindfulness and breathing. Whenever you feel angry, frustration, or anxiety, stop for a moment and breathe deeply. Use this emotional break to observe your thoughts and choose a more balanced answer. Conscious breathing is a simple but powerful tool to control negative impulses. Plan your priorities daily. Before bed, list the 3 most important things you want to do the next day. By focusing on a few clear goals, you increase your productivity and reduce stress associated with task overload. Implementing these practices will regularly transform your approach to life, allowing you to face challenges with greater serenity and effectiveness. Remember, small daily changes can have significant long-term impacts. Throughout this video, we explore 7 seemingly harmless habits that may be weakening our mental, emotional, and physical strength. From procrastination to emotional reactivity, these harmful behaviors affect our productivity, well-being, and ability to make assertive decisions. However, we find that Stoicism offers practical and transformative solutions to overcome these challenges. Stoic principles teach us that we have control over our reactions, choices, and perspectives. By adopting practices such as visualizing the worst scenario, daily gratitude, the method of 3 priorities, and emotional pause, we can strengthen our mind, improve our resilience, and gain greater balance in all areas of life. True change begins with consistent small steps. Choose today one of these habits to work and start your journey towards personal transformation. Remember, you don't have to change everything at once. Each progress, however small, counts. Before closing, let me share a memorable quote from Marco Aurelio. "You have power over your thoughts, not about external events. Do this, and you will find strength." May these words inspire you to face any obstacle with wisdom and courage. Thanks for watching. If this video has helped you, consider giving like, sharing, and subscribing to the channel for more content about personal development and practical philosophy. Together, we can build a more resilient and significant life.